Silver is not money, but money is silver. So Karl Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto, which I've read, and most of his work was based off his anger from Adam Smith and his followers about the labour theory of value. Now, we know the labour theory of value is wrong, that value is subjective. Anyway, he wrote that book, and that's led to, all sorts of authoritarian regimes around the world and a lot of deaths. And funny enough, a lot of those on the left idolise Karl Marx. However, Karl Marx was an advocate of silver. Marx knew the value of silver in an economic sense, writing that although gold and silver are not by nature money, money is by nature gold and silver. So feel free, folks, to share this quote with all your lefty mates who are into socialism, communism, Marxism, all really one and the same. And those that have bought into MMT, this, fiat expansion, that actually Karl Marx understood the value of silver as money. He understood that fiat actually creates more wealth inequality. So feel free to go educate your friends and use this quote. So I did this video some time ago, Silver is God's Money, where we looked at silver in the Bible and going back through the Old Testament, where actually silver is used as money, where gold is used as a store of wealth or a store of value. So I thought with Karl Marx, with that quote, that it would be a good time to go back and have a look at why should we study money, the origins of money, the mystery of banking, and what the state has done to our money.
Why study money? Few economic subjects are more tangled or more confused than money. Debates abound over tight money versus easy money, over the Federal Reserve System and the Treasury rolls, and over how to deal with the financial crisis. Perhaps confusion stems from humanity's propensity to study only immediate political and economic problems. If we immerse ourselves wholly in day-to-day affairs, we cease making fundamental distinctions or asking the really basic questions. Political tribalism, amplified by the instant gratification of social media, can allow us to completely consider practical limitations to our desired ideological goals. This is particularly true in our economy, where interrelations are so intricate that we must isolate a few important factors, analyze them, and then trace their operations in the complex world. As always, it is the objective of a good economist to not simply analyze what is seen, but to compare it to alternative possible outcomes. Of all the economic problems, money is possibly the most tangled, and perhaps where we most need perspective. Money, moreover, is the economic area most encrusted and entangled with centuries of government meddling. In fact, most that are considered experts never think of state control of money as interference in the free market. A free market in money is unthinkable to them. The result has been a century of central bankers increasing their power over society, decade after decade. Historically, money was one of the first things controlled by government. Manipulating the currency was always one of the easiest ways to extract revenue from the public, allowing the state to spend and control far more than they could through taxation alone. Now, generations of Americans have only known a global economy fueled by fiat money from any commodity backing. This complete politicization of one of the most important tools in human society has directly resulted in devastation and human misery to a degree many can understand. As Congressman Ron Paul has noted, it is no coincidence that the century of total war coincided with the century of central banking. We will also see how many of the alleged failings of a capitalist economy, raised by critics on both the left and right, the result of markets is now, but of the socialization of money. So, it is high time that we turn fundamental attention to the lifeblood of our economy, money. Can money be organized under the freedom principle? Can we have a free market in money as well as in other goods and services? What would be the shape of such a market? And what are the effects of various governmental controls? If we favor the free market in other directions, if we wish to eliminate government invasion of person and property, we have no more important task than to explore the ways and means of a free market in money. The origins of money. First, let's start at the beginning. What are the origins of money? Before money, there was barter, an exchange of goods or services between humans. It is this economic behavior that is the foundation of civilization. If no one could exchange, and if we are forced to be completely self-sufficient, most of us would starve to death, and the rest would barely remain alive. Exchange is the lifeblood, not only of our economy, but of human existence. A barter system has two basic problems: indivisibility and lack of coincidence of wants. Imagine that a farmer wants to buy a pair of shoes, but the cobbler does not want eggs. He may want beef, but the farmer is not willing to slaughter his cow for shoes. A trade where both are happy is now difficult. Any sort of advanced economy is impossible with simple direct exchange. But man adapted. How? Indirect exchange. Consider our farmer. Instead of offering eggs, he finds what the cobbler really wants: butter. Butter is now exchanged for shoes. If enough people also want butter, our farmer may buy more, not to use, but to conveniently exchange for other goods and services. This additional use further increases butter's demand, making it a medium of exchange. Many goods have played this role in the past. Tobacco in colonial Virginia, sugar in the West Indies, copper in ancient Egypt. Historically, gold and silver have emerged as widely accepted money in a free market. This is not only because metal can be converted into units, like coins, but because both have long been desired for their beauty, use, and scarcity. This process, the cumulative development of a medium of exchange on the free market, is the only way money can become established from barter. This market process allows for price discovery between a medium of exchange and other goods and services. Without this, it would be impossible for money to be properly valued. As we will see, government can manipulate the value of money, but it is powerless to create it from nothing. As such, money did not begin as an abstract unit of account. It is not a useless token only good for exchanging. It is not a claim on society. It was simply a commodity. Like commodities, its price, in terms of other goods, is still determined by supply and demand today. When there is a high demand for money, perhaps because people are uncertain about the future and save more, the price of money goes up, which means the prices of goods and services go down. When the demand for money drops, perhaps because it is feared it will be worth less tomorrow, consumers will spend it faster, which means prices go up. When competing currencies exist, prices may also change between different monies. In the past, the market forces may have changed the value of silver to gold, or may today change the ratio of dollars to euros. These exchange rates can happen freely on the market. But how did we go from money as gold and silver to the dollars and euros we have now? To understand that, we must first understand the service that emerged as the result of money: banking. The mystery of banking. The rise of monetary economies assisted two significant changes to society. First, since the fruit of one's labor could now be monetized and exchanged freely, it allowed for the specialization of labor. Second, thanks to monetization, individuals could more easily save for the future. By allowing for savings and capital formation, human societies were able to advance beyond subsistence farming. But with savings came another critical issue: security. The banking industry allowed consumers to keep their gold or silver in protected vaults, and in return, they received paper receipts, which is easier to carry than heavy metal coins. The receipt entitles the owner to claim his goods at any time he desires, like keeping personal items in a warehouse. Since any holder of the receipt can claim the gold, convenience inevitably leads to the transfer of these paper notes instead of the metal itself. So long as the bank has as much gold as it does banknotes, which is called full reserve banking, there is no increase in the money supply. What if, however, the bank realizes that money kept in the bank is not needed all at once? A bank could lend out a customer's money, receive profit from the loan, and then return the money into the customer's account before it is withdrawn. If a customer closes their account quicker than expected, the bank may borrow from another account to make up the difference. This is fractional reserve banking, and this is how almost all banks operate today. In doing so, big banks have become very profitable, but the economic consequences complicate the issue of money. For example, let us say that 100 gold coins enter a bank account. The bank account only keeps 10% reserves in an account, so it lends out 90 gold coins. 50 of those 90 gold coins end up in another customer's account at the bank, and now the bank lends out 45 of those coins. From that first deposit of 100 coins, the original customer currently has a receipt for 100 coins. Another customer has a receipt for 50 coins, and there are additional 135 coins worth of loans on the market. The result is an expansion of paper receipts, money substitutes, in the market without any increase in gold to support it. This arrangement is also different than if the original customer directly loaned out 50 coins instead, because with such a loan, the lender would have no expectation of being able to access the money that is being borrowed. These unbacked banknotes, like counterfeiting a coin, is an example of inflation, which may be defined as an increase in the economy's supply of money, not consisting of an increase in the monetary base. These types of fractional reserve banks, therefore, are inherently inflationary institutions. Whether this additional money is created by the direct printing of new money or by multiplying in a fractional reserve system, the result is an increase in the money supply not reflected in an increase of wealth in the real economy, which will create additional issues we will explore later. Another issue that arises with fractional reserve banking is what happens if customers lose confidence in the bank. Bank panics are devastating, not only because a large withdrawal of money from an over-leveraged bank hurts other customers, but it can lead to better managed banks being similarly stressed in ways they did not anticipate. As such, many of the criticisms of instability prior to the Federal Reserve has little to do with gold as money, and everything to do with the lending practices of banks themselves. Many, as we will see, were problems that resulted directly from government policy designed to increase its control over money and banking. To understand money as it exists today, far removed from any sort of commodity standard, we must understand why control over money is so important to the state. Money and the state. Governments, unlike all other organizations, do not obtain their revenue as voluntary payment for their services. Consequently, governments face an economic problem different from that of everyone else. Private individuals who want to acquire more goods and services from others must produce and sell more of what others want. Governments need only find some method of expropriating more goods without the owner's consent. One way is theft, which in a monetary economy is called taxation. But taxes are unpopular, and too much of them can spark rebellion from the public. As a result, governments discovered another way to enrich themselves: counterfeiting, creating new money out of thin air, rather than earning it through exchanging goods and services. While much has changed throughout history, government's dependence on counterfeiting goes back thousands of years. For example, in ancient Rome, emperors would shave off bits of metal from coins or replace them entirely for inferior metal. In doing so, the government would create new coins for it to spend, at the expense of the citizens whose money was now less valuable. Governments today do not inflate the currency by cutting coins, but they continue to expand the money supply at the expense of everyone else. How? Two ways. One is by creating it directly. One consequence of using paper was that it became easier to print new money into the system. Every new dollar that the government created, not backed by any commodity, had the same effect as shaving off metal to create new coins. In today's world, it is even easier. Now that most transactions are done electronically, central banks, like the Federal Reserve, can create trillions of new dollars with a keypad. This can then be pumped through the banking system with the central bank buying assets, like government debt or mortgages, in exchange for the newly printed money. The other way is by regulating how banks can issue loans. With a fractional reserve banking system, the government can increase the money supply by changing the requirements for reserves in bank deposits. Requiring a 90% reserve means only 10% of a bank account can be loaned out. Changing that to a 10% reserve would allow for an exponential increase in the money supply, given the way money can multiply in such a system. This increase in the money supply can give the economy the appearance of increased wealth in an economy. More money means its price, also called the interest rate, or the cost of borrowing money, goes down, which means that it is cheaper to invest in a new project than an individual may believe to be profitable. Without an increase in money, this would require an increase in real savings, which would reflect a change in consumer preferences. Instead, this artificial boom leads to investments in projects and industries that would not have appeared profitable with real market prices. A short-term boom becomes a bust as there is not enough profit to justify the debt. A government that controls the money and banking systems in an economy can use it to confiscate wealth through inflation, monetize its debt, and interfere with general investment activity. It can do all of this without the brutality of police forces or militaries. How do governments achieve this power? To help understand that, let us look at the history of our Federal Reserve.
So a couple of things to note. There's no reserve requirements at the moment. So we've got fiat on steroids. And the other thing to note is when central banks do quantitative easing, there's actually quite a lot of nuance. So they create bank reserves to purchase assets. However, you've got to look at who they're purchasing those assets from and the flow of that newly created currency unit. And Lyn Alden did a blog post in November 2020, Banks QE and Money Printing, where she goes through the nuance. One of the best blogs that I recommend reading. Now, if you're not a reader, that's okay. George Gammon did a video series, part 1 of 7, called Banking Mechanics, Is Money Printing Set to Explode?, where he actually goes through Lyn's blog and breaks it down in short little clips. So there's 7 parts. So I'll put a link in the description below. So it's important to understand that there are no reserve requirements and also the nuance when central banks do quantitative easing. And George also in this video, which was from a discussion he had with Fed insider, former New York trader, Fed trader, Joseph Wang. This is a monetary paradigm shift. Prepare for epic inflation. So it just talks about the nuance, once again, of quantitative easing and the difference from pre-GFC to post-GFC to now. And if you want to learn more about the origins of the Federal Reserve, the history of central banking, especially with the United States focus, then I highly recommend getting G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I bought it 20-odd years ago, and that definitely opened my eyes quite a lot. And G. Edward Griffin gets a little bit of criticism from some segments of the community, but all I'll say is read the book and make up your own mind. So if you want to understand more about macro and the plumbing of the financial system, then I highly recommend reading Professor Bob Murphy's Understanding Money Mechanics book. Now, you can order a hard copy from the Mises Institute bookstore, or you can download a free ebook copy from the Mises Institute bookstore. I'll put a link in the description below. I highly recommend you guys do it. Also, highly recommend you guys join the Mises Institute as a member. They've got wonderful amounts of books that you can download for free or purchase. Excellent videos, podcasts. I shared some videos in this. They've got some wonderful education and courses for beginners and also graduates in economics. So whether you're just learning economics or whether you have studied economics and you're an expert in it, the Mises Institute is for you. So I highly recommend it. Anyway, guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. As always, really do appreciate it. Apparently it helps the algorithms, I'm told. Really do appreciate that. Love to see your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Did you learn anything in this video about how the monetary system works and how money works, the history of money? I thought this was a cool little video to put together and share with you guys. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you all again on another episode of Finance Uncut.